Hey folks, if you are normally subscribed to this channel, you may be thinking that, I just do video game covers. But today I wanted to speak about something a little bit different. This should be applicable to any YouTube creators, whether they're cover musicians, vloggers, let's player, whatever. If you are such a YouTube creator and you've been paying attention to some of the recent YouTube news and drama, then you probably are familiar with the fact that lots of people are upset because their views have been in fluctuation. And there is not a lot of information about this, so there's been a lot of hypotheses about why this is happening. So some people think that YouTube is trying to kill traditional channels and is trying to go for clickbait engagement types of ask for likes, comments, and subscribes, and do all these giveaways and show cleavage if you're H3. And then some have said that this is kind of connected to this long-standing YouTube bug where your subscribers who normally get your content on their homepage have been randomly unsubscribed from you, or they don't get that content anymore. There's just random stuff appearing on the homepage. Well, one thing that was interesting was YouTube actually did a survey recently where they tried to ask people, hey, what's this unsubscription bug? We've never seen this. We don't know if it exists. Please provide your thoughts about it. And so I thought that this would be a great time for YouTube to get that information and then to finally have the data it would need to figure out what was going wrong with these YouTube unsubscriptions and then fix it. Well, that didn't happen. In fact, I think it was today that YouTube announced that they were closing their survey. And the reason that they were closing their survey is because they had found that there was no evidence whatsoever to support this YouTube unsubscription thing. So in fact, YouTube declared that the YouTube unsubscription bug that everyone keeps talking about, it's not a thing. There's no data to suggest that, so you should get over it. I don't know what they were doing about that because I, in fact, did have that unsubscription bug happen to me. It affected me after I watched Daryl Eves' video on the YouTube unsubscription bug. I watched his video. I had been watching his stuff for a while, and I noticed that I wasn't subscribed to his channel anymore. So I personally experienced that very shortly after that survey was sent out, and I sent that over. So I can't opine about the YouTube subscription bug. I can't opine about the algorithmic changes and things like that. Other YouTubers have done a much better job of that. And I guess I'll link or write a card or something to some of them that have had really great analysis. But what I did want to talk about is that it seems that, to put it simply, subscriptions are dying. Now, what does this mean? Does it mean that YouTube's going to get rid of subscriptions so that you won't be able to subscribe to your favorite channels? That's probably not going to happen. But what is happening is the importance of subscriptions as a way to notify certain people of all the things that you upload. That is in jeopardy. It's already something that if you haven't been paying attention, most of your subscribers aren't getting notified about all of your videos. There's a way that you can have them set things up so that this should happen more often, but it's not something that's set up by default. And the reason that I want to say that subscriptions are dying and that they will soon be dead is because this is not something that just applies to YouTube. This is actually a trend that's been occurring across a wide number of different services. So for any of you who are on Spotify, you should have been aware that there used to be a feature to follow your favorite bands on Spotify. And if you follow your favorite bands on Spotify, what it would allow you to do is you'd get instant notifications for those bands that you follow whenever they release something new, like a new release, a new album, a new single. And there was even, tools that you could integrate with Spotify so that you'd put in your address or your city or whatever, and it would let you know whenever your favorite bands, the ones that you followed, would be in your city performing a concert. It was really great. It was like it's what actually sold me to use Spotify in the first place, because I was like, I don't really trust this, but I had those features and I thought this is really helpful to keep up with that. So that was Spotify. That should sound very similar to, of course, YouTube. The idea that you have these creators that you're specifically interested in, that you want to hear more about, so you subscribe to them so that you'll get instant notifications about everything that they put out, new videos, things like that. And then for the third example, I'd put like Facebook. They used to call them brand pages. Now they're called fan pages. So the idea would be that you'd be interested in certain brands and that you would like those brands or become their fan, and that you'd get the access to all of the posts of each of those brands or fan pages. Now, if you've been paying attention to social media for any amount of time, you should realize that there is something in common about all three of those services, Spotify, YouTube, and Facebook, that speak very poorly about the prospects of the follower or subscription model. And that is that each of these different social media platforms has systematically moved away from their previous policy or previous setup where followers, likers, subscribers would get immediate notifications only from the channels or fan pages or bands that they were interested in. And each of these services has essentially moved away to this sort of discovery model. So let's explain this. In, I think, April or May of 2016, Spotify eliminated the notification bell. And that notification bell was the main way that people would find out, hey, this is what my favorite band's releasing. This is what I need to check for. They released this notification bell and they said that they were going to have email notifications. Okay, whatever, email is not as good as getting desktop notifications, but if they did that, that would be great. Well, after several weeks or months of people complaining, and I definitely joined those Spotify forums so that I could, give in my complaint too, to bring back the bell, Spotify announced that it would not be bringing back the bell. It would not be bringing back any way for people to find out about the specific bands that they were interested in. And instead, it gave these discovery tools. They have had for a while, I don't know what they call it, some sort of discover new playlist that you get this discovery playlist each week or 2 weeks or however it is. And it's something where it may include some bands you follow, but it also includes a lot of bands that you don't. Well, what they did was, instead of getting this notification bell that would tell you specifically about the bands that you followed, they implemented the release radar. So you think, okay, maybe this release radar is a good thing. Maybe it's going to be all of the bands that I explicitly follow in a playlist, but it's actually not. The release radar is releases from an automatically selected number of bands and musicians, some of whom you may follow and others of whom you may not. Spotify's just guessing based off of your taste of what you listen to that you might like these things. So it's about discovery of things that you haven't heard before. So that's Spotify. YouTube, of course, has had something very similar in that instead, it used to be that when, I think this was as early as 2015, that whenever you'd upload a video, there'd be a checkbox saying, please notify all my subscribers. So it was in the channel creator or the YouTuber who was making the content's ability to say whether they want to notify. So if you have this video, you want to notify everyone, you click that button. And if you don't want to notify, it's something like, you wanted to kind of keep under the wraps for a bit, you would uncheck that. What happened sometime in 2015 was that YouTube moved to a system where whenever someone subscribes to a channel, they aren't notified of all videos. Instead, there is this notification bell next to the channel whenever you're watching one of their videos or whenever you're in your subscription manager. And what this notification bell does is the YouTuber who is watching the content, your lovely fans and subscribers, they have to opt in this notification bell to say whether they want to get notifications or not. This is not opt out, this is opt in. So if your YouTube subscribers who had previously been receiving all of your content didn't know about this change that happened in 2015, then the fact is that they haven't made this necessary change to go to your name and click the bell and then say that they want all your notifications, and therefore they aren't getting all your notifications. So to find out all of your content, they have to do one of two things. They have to kind of go into their subscriptions tab, which shows everything in chronological order, or they have to kind of just hope that your content will show up on their homepage, which is a problem because the new algorithmic change, what people are suggesting is it's saying that on that homepage for YouTube, it's showing less subscribed content and more general content. Again, same sort of thing that happened with Spotify. Instead of it being tailored content that people choose to subscribe to, it's more of this algorithmic approach where YouTube says, this is what we think you'll like. But one thing I will say about YouTube over Spotify is that there is that choice for subscribers to go to particular channels, to click that little bell and then say, sign me up for all the notifications of this channel. And if you're familiar with Facebook, this story should seem very familiar because exactly the same thing has happened. Although Facebook got on this boat way earlier. So I think it was around 2010 or 2011 that this change happened. I tried to do a Google search by year, and it seemed like the focus on organic reach only really struck around 2010 and 2011 when everyone realized that they had these fan pages that had all of these fans, but only a very small percentage of the fans were seeing each post. Because what Facebook did was they said, instead of it being a fan page is for content that a Facebook user wants to be updated of everything about, what they did was they expanded the definition so that every fan page is equivalent to a like. So you like these interests and you like these music, all of that's the same. And so because you had all of these likes on Facebook, Facebook couldn't possibly just show you everything. There's no way that people would be able to comprehend that. So instead, Facebook had this model in their newsfeed that it would prioritize, again, kind of automatically. So it kind of looks at what are people engaging with, what are you liking, what are you reading, what are you clicking on. And so now that we talk about in the political arena about how everyone's in these silos of not being able to see the other side politically, the reason that is because of Facebook. It's not that people are individually blocking all of their relatives who have horrific political opinions, although you might also be doing that. Facebook doesn't need that. Facebook just sees that whenever your aunt posts some politically ignorant article, that you skip by it. You don't like it. You don't click on it. And Facebook notices that and notices that you do click on the articles that agree with you politically, and you do like on them and you do comment on them. And so even though you haven't blocked anyone, Facebook knows to prioritize what you like, comment on, etc., and what you don't. So how this affects content creators like YouTubers who may have a Facebook page is if your fans aren't liking, commenting, engaging on your Facebook posts, then what Facebook says is, oh, if these fans weren't doing that, this little sliver, this statistical sample of fans didn't engage on it, we're not going to share it with any more of the fans. So it's kind of a snowball effect. If people are liking, then it shares it with more people, and more people can like it and it shares it with more people. But if no one's liking or engaging in the first place, then Facebook stops sharing your content. One way to get around this is by using ads, but then it's kind of like, why are you paying to do something that you should be able to do for free? But we'll get to that because this is another reason why the subscription model is probably going to be dying everywhere. Because if a social media service can make content creators pay to get their fans to see their stuff, then why wouldn't they do that over, offering that for free? If they can get people to pay, they're going to do that. So one thing to note is, kind of like YouTube, there is an opt-in feature for Facebook fans to say, I want to be notified of the things that this fan page offer. Again, this is not opt-out, this is opt-in. So if your fans have not done this for everything that they have become a fan of, this is not happening. If they haven't done this for your page specifically, if you haven't done it for my Facebook page, if you aren't even aware of my Facebook page, then definitely click this link that I'm going to put somewhere. But if your fans aren't aware of that, then by definition, they're not going to be getting this. And there's something that it says as well, and I'll show you how that looks on Facebook, that you can decide to put Facebook fan page posts priority in the newsfeed versus just kind of mix them with everything else. Again, that's opt-in, and it's not very visible. It's not very prominent. So people aren't kind of searching on the options. They won't know that that even exists. So I think that the point is this is something that's happening across a number of different social media venues. And if you think that I just cherry picked 3 different social media venues, then let me tell you, this is something that's been happening on a number of different sites. So let me just add a couple more. SoundCloud. It used to be that kind of you would follow people on SoundCloud and then you would listen to their songs and that would be great. Well, SoundCloud now has this feature, and they've had this feature for a while, where it will autoplay tracks after the one that you have played. And there's no way you can turn this off. So as soon as one track ends, it will play the next. Now, sometimes what it does is it goes through the same artist that you've been listening to. But what happens when it gets to the end, or it doesn't know what next track to play? It will then play related tracks. And these related tracks, again, are this automatic algorithm designed around discovery of things that it thinks you might like, but it's not things that you may necessarily be subscribed to or following on SoundCloud. And then, of course, the next thing I would point out, just one out of many, is Twitter. Twitter used to be very well known for having this very chronological feed, and it was this thing that Twitter stands against Facebook, where Facebook kind of tweaks what you see and when, and it's not chronological. People said Twitter was going to be different. Twitter was always going to be chronological. But of course, now you have things like things that you miss. And I think that the things you miss feature is actually very helpful, because I have Twitter people that I'm following from all across the world, and I may not be awake at the same time they are. So that things the things you may have missed feature is really helpful for seeing the things that I missed in a different time zone. But what Twitter has also done is they've done this kind of things you might enjoy or things you might like, where, again, it's things where you're not following that person, but it gives you that anyway because these are tweets that have gotten engagement, maybe from other people that you follow, maybe just in general. So I think what you should think of as, content creators is that all of these different systems are moving to the system away from tailoring to your subscribers or fans and giving them your content up front, which is, I think, what a lot of people thought they were getting into when they originally subscribed to the channels. They thought, I'm subscribing to this channel, so I will be instantly notified of this channel. Well, companies are moving away from that into this new system based off of discovery, where the service tries to come up with some algorithm where it guesses at what people may like based off of their previous taste, but which may not include all of the things by a content creator. Theoretically, this should be good for people who are less well known, because then there will be in that discovery pool for people who are more famous. And in fact, some of the data suggests for the YouTube algorithmic changes that YouTube doesn't want to admit to yet, that what is happening is that there's just a rebalancing. That some of these famous YouTubers may be losing views because the home pages are now emphasizing up-and-coming YouTubers. And some people have suggested, like I think Roberto Blake, that what's happening is YouTube has been telling people you need to use descriptions, you need to use your tags, you need to use your titles so that YouTube can know where to place your videos. And what most big creators have been doing is they haven't been doing this. Their titles are garbage, their descriptions are garbage, they rarely use tags, and when they do, they're garbage. And they haven't had a problem with this because they have the watch time from their subscriber base and they haven't had to worry about it. Well, the idea, the hypothesis at least, is that what is happening now is that YouTubers who don't have good titles and who don't have good tags and who don't have good descriptions are being penalized on the homepage because YouTube doesn't know how to put these videos on the homepage. But people who are doing it, like younger YouTubers, newer YouTubers who need those tags and titles and descriptions to kind of get a leg up in YouTube search and whatnot, those people who've been diligent at their YouTube SEO are getting the leg up. So congratulations to YouTube if that is the case. Hopefully we will see more that there's that rebalancing in favor of the smaller YouTube, because no offense to the bigger YouTubers, y'all are great and all, but I would like the wealth to be shared around a little bit. I'm sure that like half the people just unsubscribed for me because that's like socialist or whatever, but we'll deal with that later. Now, as I said before, I think that this is the way of the future. I think that this thing is like a death that you can't revive. You can't use a phoenix down in this. It's not coming back. Eris is dead forever. And the reason I think that is because, as I mentioned before, one is money. If these services can make you pay to have your content sent to all your subscribers, then that's better for them. Not better for you, but better for them if they can make you pay to promote. So a lot of these services are promoting ads. YouTube has their ad thing where you can make one of your videos an ad, and then it shows up on other people's YouTube videos and things like that. Facebook, of course, has ads for any posts on those fan pages, so you can make that into an ad and try to get your fans to see those posts that way. Twitter has ads, although I've never used Twitter ads and I don't know how effective those are. I'm imagining that Spotify is going to be getting some sort of ad system if they don't already. I mean, I guess they do have an ad system, but since I actually pay for Spotify, which maybe you should think about supporting the artists you support by paying for them. No, just kidding. If you like ads, then ads can support them too, but think about paying. So the money is the first issue. But then the second issue is precisely this idea of discovery. So YouTube's always about driving watch time. That's something they've been doing for a long time. For better or for worse, depending on what content creator watch time may be good for you, may be bad for you. For musicians and for for content creators with work that takes a lot of involvement, like animators, musicians, things like that, it's not a really good deal because a Let's Player can produce an hour-long video with much less work than an animator can. That's just how it works. No offense to Let's Player. I mean, there's definitely skills that you need to be a good Let's Player. I'm not saying that there's no skill required, but it's easier to play a game for an hour and try to develop your engaging ability and your personality and whatnot than it is to develop an hour's worth of music or an hour's animation. And so that's one thing where watch time is kind of hurt different creators, but whatever. But if there's this kind of diversity, there's this kind of balancing and this kind of discovery feature of these different services, then theoretically that could kind of balance things out. Who knows how that will happen? Long story short, though, it's just something that as a content creator you have to be aware of. Now, as I mentioned, some of these services like YouTube and Facebook, they have opt-in systems. So you can tell your subscribers, as I'm going to tell my subscribers, there are things you can do to make sure that you're getting notified of your favorite content creators. For example, in YouTube, we're going to go over it. I'm going to make a little DLE somewhere. There, you do have that notification bell, and you can make sure for your favorite content creators that you have that notification bell enabled. Same thing for Facebook. It's kind of hidden a little way on the fan page, but you can make sure that you're being notified of all of their posts, and you can make sure that they show up first in your feed, not mixed in with everything else. That's something that's opt-in. But we have to be aware that these are just kind of workarounds. If these systems, if these different social media companies are truly moving to this discovery model, then they could decide to just kill this tailored notification approach completely. YouTube and Facebook offer these things now, but it could be like Spotify, where they got rid of that notification bell where you could get instant notifications for your bands, and they did not replace it with anything that allowed tailored notifications. As far as I know, on December 14th, 15th, whatever, December 15th, happy birthday to me, I guess, whatever. You don't need to wish me happy birthday, but it's my birthday. December 15th, there is no way now to find out as of the day that they release that someone has released something on Spotify through Spotify. I find things out from Bandcamp whenever they release them that day. I find things out from other, if I've signed up to the artist mailing list, but Spotify no longer is that one-stop shop where I can find it whenever anyone's releasing anything. So, I mean, it's kind of like, what's the value? I can't find out whenever bands are going to be in my city just through Spotify. I'm going to have to do a bunch of other stuff to find that. Now, I mean, there are other websites that were doing that anyway, but it's something where I can't just rely on the fact that I already have this list via Spotify of bands that I'm interested in, and then therefore it'll tell me whenever they're in town or whenever they're planning to be in town so I can buy that ticket. So if you think about Spotify, then you should be very afraid, because YouTube and Facebook, they're constantly changing their systems, and they could change something that breaks the feature and not replace it with anything else. And if that happens, then all of a sudden you're just relying on this discovery feature. You can't tailor content to your subscribers. What are the solutions for this? Well, I think that what most experts at these things would say is that you should not think of yourself just as a YouTuber. You should not just think of yourself as a Twitter person. You should not think of yourself just as a Facebook person or whatever, because these make you reliant or dependent on these platforms. You should be thinking of yourself as an internet personality and then trying to build that brand elsewhere to something you control, like a website or a mailing list. I don't have a mailing list because, I have a day job and I don't actually rely on income from this. But if this is something that you do want to kind of become YouTube famous, you want to make that your main source of income, then I think that everyone who is like a big deal in this YouTube coaching, space, Tim Schmoyer, Daryl Eves, anyone, they're going to say that your entire purpose is going to be to try to use these different platforms to try to push people elsewhere. So you use YouTube to sell your book. You use Facebook to get your speaking engagements or whatever it is. Now, for me, again, I don't have the time to do that, but I also have a job, so I don't need to do that. But that's something you might want to think about. You can't just rely on the algorithm. So I understand whenever people are upset that they lost these views and they say, some people have livelihoods based off of YouTube. But the point is, these changes are always going to happen, and you cannot trust these corporations to have your best interest in mind. You have to have your own best interest in mind. Unfortunately, that's fairly depressing, but I think that's all I can, leave this message, this video with. So, happy holidays, happy birthday to me, and hopefully, if you like this, you'll check out some of my video game covers because, as I mentioned, I don't just do these rants, I do video game covers most of the time. So please think about liking, sharing this video, maybe subscribing, checking to see if there's anything else, maybe video game songs from your childhood, video game songs you've never heard of that you might want to pay attention to. Thanks.